asymmetrical, which then in no way leads to sustainable tourism. Nevertheless, geoparks are regions or landscapes, areas intending to inform the locals about the fact that the local ecosystem services are of vital importance to the locals, and information about how these phenomena are originating, are being passed on and disseminated. In here you can see an example of how the biotic and abiotic sections or elements can be put together. An example from the Peruvian Colca Geopark in the Andaguan Valley, and the ritual is being called Pagoritia, which means a tribute to the earth, or a celebration of Mother Earth, as Mother Earth is actually preserving the local ethnical groups, which are well aware of this and are deeply valuing this life-giving power of Mother Earth. Consequently, this Latin American sector or Latin American part of the world is frequently focusing or frequently being mentioned as the Pachamama tourism. Here there are some examples of what the locals present in relation to geotourism. This refers to the Ore Mountain Geopark in the Czech Republic, and there is some deep tradition and a dramatical story behind all this. Like volcanic tectonic processes which are behind all this. Erosions can be mentioned as well, or glacial processes. This geo story creates the park as such and makes it interesting to visit the geopark as such and get to know some information. There are also some examples from the Muraton Geopark, the Bohemian Paradise, and an example from Crete and the Ukraine. What matters and what's important is preserving authenticity of the life at the respective spot, which is important not only for indeed preserving the life as such, not only presenting it to the tourists, but also for, well, preserving and for creating the experience when somebody visits the particular place. So it's important then not to make some theatrical play out of the local cultural heritage. This also refers to any local handcrafts. They have to be authentical. The traditions passed on from one generation to another, be it the example on the left side from Sardinia, or examples of traditional beer brewing in the Bohemian Paradise, or traditional creative handcrafts in China. Within this context, we also have to refer to geofood, a concept which is quite handily being used to link daily activities, the most favorable one, so to say, which is food and drinks. And these are then being linked to geology, or rather to getting to know the local geological aspect. Again, an example from the Moroto Geopark, which is frequently facing natural catastrophes like tsunami as it faces the open ocean, and quite frequently there are no services available at all, no supplier services, and in this case, the people have to take care after themselves, relying on local resources like plants and others. And this knowledge is being passed on from the older generation to younger generations as local herbs and plants can be used to actually create interesting and tasty food. Furthermore, we have another example on the picture below. Furthermore, we might also refer to beer brewing when it comes to geology, like the atomite being used for filtering, or gypsum, which forms an important ingredient to lower acidity, or copper. Additionally, I'd like to mention this example of deep seawater geoproducts from Roto. The geological situation provides for these geoproducts being actually created out of ocean water, and we can easily see that it's not only important to just make local products, but also to sell them while telling a geologically relevant story that makes them actually unique. Another example from the Portuguese Azuri Geopark, where geothermal energy provides for food being cooked on these resources. An example from Crete, once again, where the shepherds are living in these mitas, as they are called, mitatas, excuse me, and they are preserving the shepherd tradition or cheese making, traditional cheese making, passing on this knowledge to younger generations. The local creativity is fantastic. This one is an example from a Spanish bakery who's not only interested in strengthening the local market, but is also baking these traditionally shaped products shaped like ammonites and others. And he's passing on this knowledge, his experience, and his fondness to the locals when actually selling them this interesting baked goods. Another example from the Azeroth Geopark, offering the cultural services of Mother Earth. That's the cultural section, so aesthetic, culture, and ecosystem services. We might also mention examples from Yukoko, where local earths are being used or local know-how in order to create these ovens. Vulkaneifel, a German geopark where these volcanic stones are being used. Longshan in China on the left below, where intangible cultural assets are being or is being linked to and engraved into rocks. And the Wushan Geopark, where again intangible cultural heritage serves to make use of the cormorants while fishing. The local traditional community traditions are being reflected in certain rituals or festive activities, be it in the Bohemian Paradise in here, or certain masquerades or celebrations, like the sun celebration in Rio Coco, or the corn festival. An icon of this particular ethnical group in the Rio Coco Valley in Nicaragua. Furthermore, these are examples of how we can, well, intuitively perceive and make use of the concepts. An example referring to the Colca Geopark and the Andagua Geopark. We also see examples of how local products in the Geopark of Lesbos are being made, or how rice is being used, or rather parts of plants to make traditional sandals. Again, an examples from China. Nevertheless, we can also traditionally produce tofu as it is being done here. There are intangible cultural assets and intangible cultural heritage, for which refers, for example, to the dragon dances, certain religious manifestations. What's also important is to actually write and pass on a story which is hidden behind local geology. This is important. That's what the geotourism tourist can get as an add-on. Not just the experience, not just a presentation as such, not just some gastronomy experience or local product, but the tourist is being informed why the local product is so special, because there is some specific taste, because the geo food is, let's say, has some certain specific ingredient or is being specifically prepared. What's being perceived as the most sustainable way we can pursue is the so-called cohabitation tourism, where there are two worlds next to each other. Traditionally, tourists are living in a luxury world, whereas the locals are rather housing in huts. The cohabitation tourism, in turn, is rather about the tourists sharing the local food, local way of transport, which in turn creates an authentic experience, and furthermore lets us learn how the locals live, how they make use of the resources, and the tourist in turn can admire the creativity, the traditional products, or share his own experience from his home country. So how are we to progress? It's important to encourage both interest and creativity of locals, to make them, or to arouse their interest in earth or natural resources, traditions, to strengthen this collective DNA, as we call it, which also refers to local products and the respective geostory behind them. It's important to pursue the creative economy, creative life based upon local knowledge and about striving to make geotourism something which is profitable, especially for the locals, to make them actually independent on the visitors as such, which is especially important in coronavirus times, but not only. For example, nowadays there's a war in Europe, and we ought to use latest scientific knowledge in order to make the geo story something which adds a added value to the local product, which is then not only authentic but also backed by expert knowledge. This leads me to the end of my presentation, concluding it with a saying I heard in a Peruvian geopark in the Andaguan region in one of the local villages. The mayor said when we were discussing the impacts of tourism and the tourism which is usually relying on massive infrastructure, destroying the traditional aspects. So it's about discussing in how far luxury tourism is important. And he said, well, Martina, we take a look at the stars. We have luxury. We do not have hotels of 5 stars, but 1,000 stars. Just take a look up. And I do believe that's indeed mirroring the way he perceives tourism. Thank you very much for your attention. And I wish you that the experience from this conference will be as good as possible and to get to know what you want to know or want to get to know. And I would especially wish our colleagues from the Eastern European Partnership region to maybe get some knowledge which might help them in further pursuing or promoting geoparks on their region. They hopefully will establish some contacts, to start further cooperation in future. We are looking forward to helping you, not only the Czech geoparks, but also all those within the geopark network. We're looking forward to linking you with our projects to hopefully discovering further and further geoparks in the Eastern European region. Thank you very much once again, and I wish you a fruitful conference. Thank you very much.
So this was the contribution. This was the presentation by Martina Páskova. Martina Páskova, Guy Martini, and Niklas Zauros should join us online between 2 and 3 o'clock. And at this moment, we will hand over to Mr. Docek, who is a geologist of the Aralsko Geopark. No, Mr. Rubaš, sorry. So Dominik Rubaš is now on the agenda.
Vypadá to nadějně. Takže takhle může být?
Skvěle. Tak jo. Díky. Tak jo.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored that I can give a lecture here. I came from Liberec. My name is Dominik Rubaš, and I am a geologist and a geographical scientific worker in the Aralsko National Park. But I'm also a lecturer at the Technical University in Liberec and partially at the Charles University in Prague. Today I prepared a paper on the so-called place-based geo-education. Originally, the paper said, the agenda said that I would talk about the regional principle of the geo-education. Unfortunately, I am not really happy with the headset. Okay, thank you for adjusting the head microphone. I called my lecture place-based geo-education as a means of fostering a sense of place. So the sense of place is something important that we should foster within the geoparks, and I think we should really develop it as the guides in the geoparks. Right now, let us state with a quotation by Jan Amos Komensky. The whole presentation is in English. Unfortunately, the first slide remained in Czech. There's a motto that I very much like. It comes from Jan Amos Komensky. It shows here that several centuries ago, Jan Amos Komensky was very well aware of the fact how important it is to use the education also in the terrain on-site education, so that the scientists, the pupils and students see everything in their own eyes, and so that they do not perceive it passively only via textbooks. So with this motto and with this quotation, we may start my lecture. I do not want to burden you with any concepts or theories, but today I would like to talk about the geo-education and also about the place-based education, as reads the name, as reads the title of my presentation. I think it is self-explanatory, but now I would like to say a couple of words about the sense of place. It is simply a relationship that we develop. And when I came to Příbram, it is quite an unknown place to me, but through the experience that I make here today and through the people that I meet here, I simply develop a relationship to this place and to the location as such. And this is something that we should also try to achieve in the geoparks with our pupils and students. I should give the pupils and students a chance to understand it as their own place, so that they also develop some emotional relationship to the location. As educators, we should always have the education objectives in mind. They are cognitive. It means that we simply teach the pupils and students to recognize something, to get to know something. But on the other hand, we should not forget that the objectives of the education should also be psychomotoric and affective. So for 10 years, I've been active as a teacher in elementary schools with the youngest pupils aged from 6 to 14, and I also know that the affection dimension is very much neglected. We very often teach the children the facts. We simply teach them facts from the textbooks, and very often we simply put in the background the relationships and the affection for the thing, which is really a mistake that is not good. So today I would like to explain to you how we can use the affectionate uh, dimension with our pupils and students. This image shows how we went on site with our pupils and students to the Český ride, to the Czech Bohemian Paradise location, and we also visited a symbolic cemetery of the climbers, and I gave them a chance to ignite or to take the candles with them, so that we also develop a sense of place. And in that case, this excursion to the location suddenly was more laden with emotions. It is quite nice to have a theory, but it is much more difficult to do the fieldwork education when you, for example, are confronted with the pupils or with the students in the geopark, be it either in a hall or, for example, on site. It's a beautiful topic that we could spend several hours a days on, but for the few minutes that I have now, I would like to share some information concerning the fieldwork education, which is really a very nice thing that you can very well implement within the geoparks. One more thing I would like to mention is the interdisciplinary approach. When I may talk on behalf of the Czech Republic, we may unfortunately say that the interdisciplinary approach is still lacking. It is on the increase, it is rising, but still not abundant enough. So we are still lacking a more interdisciplinary approach in the Czech education system. So let us start with the fieldwork education. I claim that the fieldwork education is really absolutely indispensable for the science or the geoscience, be it, for example, biology or geography. I will repeat myself now, but very often I experience that geology uh, in, in the Czech Republic is, for example, taught also in elementary schools within the natural sciences, within the geography. But unfortunately, I very often notice that we teach it in classrooms only, and we do not go out into the countryside with the pupils, which is really a pity because the potential is really huge. And if you don't go out on an excursion with the pupils while lecturing geology, it is really a sin. And I think that the network of geoparks, which is denser, getting denser, gives us a lot of potential. For example, I think that within a zone of about 30-40 kilometers, you have a geopark. And if you do not understand as a teacher the geology enough, then you can reach out to a geologist from the geoparks. And I think that is really a great potential. In the Czech Republic, the education curriculum for the elementary schools says that geology is taught within the geography. So, mm, unfortunately, there is not enough time for that, not enough room within the curriculum. But every teacher who wants to teach the geology should definitely do the fieldwork education, should do so. So when doing the fieldwork education and when we have some goals like, for example, cognitive or affectionate objectives, then I can now explain, or I may start with the cognitive teaching. So here we have here a animation from the Aralsko Geopark. It is a very popular place where the teachers go with their pupils and students. So when teaching, I do not want the children only to know what basalt is. I simply want them to understand. I want them to understand how basalt is formed, for example, that it is a bit harder than, for example, the sandstone, that it very often is higher, and that it forms such a ridge. But I think the result should be that the pupil can, for example, recognize the basalt in the countryside, can, for example, simply find it when looking around, that the pupil simply recognizes, that sharp hill is probably not sandstone, it is probably basalt. So this is cognitive. This is cognitive facts or cognitive teaching. As a teacher, the best question I can get from the pupils is why? Why is that? I very often realized that when we answer the questions of the pupils why, then we very often return to the geology. So for example, why do we have a castle here? Because there is a hill here. And why do we have the hill here? Because it has to do with geological reasons, with the formation of the rock. So the geology very much influences the rest. But I will talk about it later on when talking about the interdisciplinary approach. When doing the fieldwork education, we should not forget the affective objectives. Very often we understand the countryside when doing the fieldwork education. We simply understand it as a laboratory where the children, for example, do some measurements, but unfortunately we forget to give the children enough time so that they can simply develop a relationship towards the countryside, so that the countryside can also form them, because can shape them, because the geoparks have really a beautiful landscape. And the fact that the pupil and students perceive the beauty is really very precious. It's not about teaching the children 30 types of rocks. We must help the children perceive the countryside and develop a good sense of relationship to the place. So what is the main objective of the geo-education? The main objective of the geo-education is to have a generation of pupils who will have a positive approach, so that we bring up, so that we raise a generation that will have a very sustainable attitude to the landscape. We can see that the sense of place is really a linkage cutting across all of the dimensions of the environmental education. And without a positive attitude to the place, this is simply not possible. We should realize that as educators, we must really teach the children how to develop a positive relationship to the countryside and landscape. This year in June and July, I visited Iceland. We went to the GeoCamp Iceland, and they use the emotions in the following way. For example, the students go simply to a location, and then they get some time how to think about how the landscape. How the landscape affects them. For example, they must answer if they understand or if they perceive the landscape as a happy one, or, for example, rather unfortunate, and etc. So when we take a look at these two countrysides, and when you ask the pupils and students, they give you an answer. So, for example, even those who do not know that much see, for example, oh, there is some pollution here, so they have a negative relationship to the first one and then a positive to the second one. But when you develop the pupils, then you can, for example, explain to the pupils that this is no real smoke, that is only condensed water, that it is simply vapor, that it is an environmental source of energy. And then when you take a look at the glacier, and then the student may suddenly perceive the glacier as something sad, because the pupils realize that the glaciers are unfortunately a sad testimony of the climate change, because when you go regularly to see and observe the glaciers, you see that they are waning. And suddenly the pupils also change their attitude. So that is why the effective approach is quite important. There are different approaches to the education. When I go out on an excursion, and there are various things we can do. For example, in the on the Czech territory, we distinguish the so-called geological excursion, which means that the pupils and students are a bit more passive, and they listen, and the geo guide has a specific route to follow and give a lecture, and the pupils and students just absorb the information. But then there are some geological walks where the roles are more balanced. I very much like the field exercises with the pupils, when the pupils must uh, simply be must take on the initiative. For example, a group of pupils gets an assignment and they must find a solution. Here you can apply the inquiry-based learning, when you simply, as a pupil, ask questions on your own, and then based on a hypothesis, you are supposed to refute or confirm the hypothesis, and you return back to the classroom. Within the field exercises, the pupils are more active. For example, the pupils have to collect various samples of rocks, and then they create something. It is more effective, more efficient, and then when you simply teach and they only listen. Now, yeah, I just needed to take a look at my watch. So let us now move on to the interdisciplinary connections. Mm, one landscape can make a different impact and impression on different people. So, for example, this is a image from the Czech Republic, from the place Český. So, how is this perceived, for example, by a geologist, or for example, by an architect, or for example, by a historian? Within our university, we do the following exercise. We go to the same place, and once the place is presented by a historian, then by a geologist, and every time the pupils get different information from a different perspective. So, for example, for a geologist, it is, for example, a place of tertiary volcano. So, for example, for a historian, it can be, for example, a Baroque landscape dating back to Albrecht of Wallenstein. So the various perspectives can be exploited when going to the countryside. I think the interdisciplinary approach is very much important in the fieldwork education. These are pictures from the Aralsko National Geopark. I would like to use this example to illustrate the interdisciplinary approach. We have various hills around Aralsko, which is a consequence of the tertiary volcanic activities. Due to the fact that we have the hills here, a castle was erected here, because on the hill the castle is better protected. Due to the volcanic activities, there are ores here which were exploited. That is why we have shafts here which have bats inside. Or, for example, we have here also the peat bog, where various species live that cannot be elsewhere. So you can see that the geology influences the history, the countryside, and also the animal species living there. So you can see the interdisciplinary consequences. It often happens that a group of peoples come to the national park who have and its pupils with little interest in geology. And when I know that they rather prefer the living species, the wildlife, then I just explain to them, look, the fact that these species live here and grow here is a consequence of the geology. So this would be about the interdisciplinary approach. In conclusion, I would like to say a beautiful quote by Rachel Carson. And at the same time, I would like to wish you to raise a population of young people uh, who will be exactly the opposite of the gentleman on the right-hand side. And we as teachers, educators, should be really the guides of the pupils. We should help the children maintain an inherent sense of beauty of the countryside all around us. I would like to thank you for your attention, and in case of questions, do not hesitate to turn to me. Thank you.
Takže jsou nějaké dotazy?
Do we have any more questions? So we'll have a change on the agenda. There will be a press conference and to manage everything. And now I would like to ask Miss Tamar Shichinadze to give a presentation now.
Tak. Okay. And here. And here. And here, right?
Give me velkou.
Welcome, colleagues. Congratulations on participating in the conference on Geopark, Geo-education, and Geotourism. I'm Tamar Chichinadze, PhD student of Ivana Tbilisi State University and science worker, geography science of Bakushti Bagration Institute of Geography. My topic is about geopark planning on the example of Racha region and several alternative locations in Georgia. At first, I introduce my country. The country located at the crossroad of Europe and Asia, and thank you very much. And the country covers 69,700 square kilometer, 67,700 square kilometers, sorry, and the population is 3.7 million people. Environmental protection in Georgia has 110 year history. The first protected area in Georgia was created in 1912 in Lagodeki municipality. It is located to the eastern part of the Georgia, and Lagodeki preserves a variety of local fauna and flora and rare flora and fauna. The region ecosystem and ecoregion is the mixed forest of this on the Caucasus. Today in Georgia, currently we have 94 protected area, what is occupied about 11.5% of our country, and we have 4 category of protected area, and I would like to point out that we don't have a geopark, and it is newest for our country, and it is main in accurate understanding about geopark in process, in scientific process, research process. And the territory what I'll present you, it is Dacha region, and it does not currently have any protected area, but it has great potential to become a member of UNESCO Global Geopark family. And also I present you Muhura village and the several territory also what has great potential. And Racha region, this is placed on the black frame, and it is my PhD. And this research process was ongoing for 2 years, and it is include both field expedition, also process research, local and international scientific literature. And also I was visited in several European geopark because understand an accurate of intent and also the exactly concept of geopark. I present you Racha location. Racha located in eastern part of the eastern north part of the western Georgia, and the area is 2,893 square kilometer. Consists of 2 municipalities. Racha is also historical territory, and Racha located 2 municipality, Ambrolauri and Oni municipality, and with other 2 municipality creates one of the region of Georgia. And why I research this territory? Today, Racha is experiencing sharp depopulation. And the mass migration of population began second half of 19th century because this region is poor of agricultural land. Also, it was time when destroyed the Soviet Union, and this whole the country was a difficult situation. And the region is characterized also with disasters, natural disasters, as a landslide, also earthquake, different erosion process. Due to constant migration, this region today experiencing aging. And the first table shows that the population after 1991 halved in both municipality. And the second table shows the population distribution by hypsometrical indication from sea level. By this map, what is I made by GIS system, a GIS program, shows that more than the more people are settled, populated, more than 300 till 1,200 meter, and only one village with 7 people are populated above 1,800. And it is the most beautiful village, Mravalzali. And I consider this territory as one of the territory of Geopark. I would like point out that today in Georgia we have no geopark, and but recently special attention has been paid to new environmental environmental policy as a geopark, and there are big interesting. Both as a from scientific and also from governments people. And the next, what I present you, it is historical review. People in Racha territory have been living since ancient time. After one of the archaeological excavation in Kudaro cave, it is determined that in middle risk glaciation of the Quaternary period have been living people here, and in the Stone Age, the cultural residues what they left here, it is corresponded on the stage of human evolution. In the past, climate was here dry and warm, and it is confirmed by bones of simples, porcupines or hydrocities, leopard, lion, bisons, red deer, and upper Paleolithic trace. The cultural residues does not found. It is explained that it was very it was quaternary period, and the last glaciation. The last glaciation, and this condition was very strict. And the upper horizontal layer contains Neolithic, Iron Ages, and we can say that after the last glaciation, people have begun here again in high. How can I say, in highland territory. Today, this highland territory consists of several villages and also former villages. For example, this is Breli, Zobrito, Tebrecho, does not exist as villages, but Upper Raja, especially mountain villages, by literary, historical, archaeological, and geological resources, it is determined BC to second millennium BC, and the territory of Oni, what is the main of city of the Oni municipality, it was exist in second BC or second millennium, and what is and they are here discovered ancient metallurgical stores and fossil waste, also combat weapons and equipment what the people here made, and also I want to say that this territory in many centuries was closed site, and because it has great potential, it has great, huge threat and contact the ancient Egypt. And this territory supplied ancient Egypt with weapons, iron weapons, and etc. And they are presented Kudaro Cave, where is prehistorical the tools from here. This is the determined Paleolithic age, and some weapons or a part of weapons. What is discovered in, for example, burial. This is bronze axis, and this is the first, or is also weapons. By physical geographical point of view, Racha is located on the southern slope of this Great Caucasus Range, mainly in Rioni River and its tributary. The north border lasts from till Pasismta, from Pasismta till Zekari Pass, and to south is border at southern slope on the Racha Ridge. And the region territory is characterized by mountain relief. The highest of the region is vary between 500 to 4,500 above sea level, and the average is 1,700. And the lowest territories, Twishi Rock, 300 meter, and the highest point is 4,462 meter. And this is Chanchahim. And depth of relief segregation in the Racha Depression, it is about 5,800 meter, and the Utsera Glola section. How can I to show this? Thank you very much. And this is Utsera Glola section. Its depth segregation is 2,700 3,000 meter. And The second, geology, Racha geology. This territory is distinguished by complex and diverse geology and tectonical condition. The geology is represented by Jurassic, Quaternary, Tertiary, and its system. What is represented also by rocky, semi-rocky, clay rocky, and it is contribute to create underground and surface relief forms. Thank you very much. And climate. Racha is located in a humid subtropical climate territory. It is characterized by rather humid, moderately cold winter and relatively relatively dry hot summer. This high mountain is almost permanently covered with snow, and the forest is in lowland. It is presented mixed on the carbonate soil, and in highland territory, the upper belt or the upper border of the forest is far spruce. And they are presented 7 types of soil and 3 types of landscape. A humid climate on the mountain by karst, a mountain middle subalpine and alpine in several times by karst, and glacier naval landscapes. Rivers, hydrographic potential. The main hydrographic artery on Racha territory is Rioni River, that is originates from Caucasus and Caucasus, and they are from Peak Pasismta. The length of the Rioni River is 337 kilometer, and it more than 150 kilometer comes the kilometer length long section comes in Racha region, and it has more than 100 small and great rivers, tributaries. The largest is 52 kilometer. It is Jejura, and the tributary of the Rioni are mainly mountains rivers, and it are characterized by mountains complex characteristics, which is expressed in the speed and in the flow, and also in main and this the mountain in the mountain river with what are located and what is originate from mountain are fed by glacier, and this Karstian river what are located in Karstian territory are fed by underground water and rainy water. And the maximum flow of the Rioni River and its tributary in the low mountain zone, it is February, January, and average is January. And there are frequent floods the frequent floods and the landslide, what is connection to summer rain, and 90% of hydrographic resources are used to production hydroelectricity. On this river, in the upper reaches, it is located many beautiful waterfalls, what we can also consider as a recreational territory. This is the most beautiful Znakwa, what is consisted 2 stage, a huge stage and waterfall of Lau, Tmori and Shareula. It is Karstian River and Cholaga. And the region is poor in lake. Most of them are glacial Karstian, or most of these lake are by glacier or karst origin. They are also rocky lakes, but exciting lakes. What we have, we can also consider as a Geoparks territory. Racha has only one reservoir. This is Shauri Reservoir, and they are presented the first and the second beautiful picture, and it is located on the northern slope of the Racha Ridge in Shauri Polye, Shauri Hollow, and its length is more than 8 kilometer, and its depth is 40 meter, and its maximum wide is 400 to 4,256 3 meter. And the feeding area of the reservoir is groundwater, mineral spring, and close water located surrounding to Shauri Polye. And Shauri, there are this is located in karst territory, and there are many of unexploited gaps, funnels, and avoids what is unexploited, and it is the this most interesting territory for by scientific point of view. Racha is characterized by strong earthquake. This is related to the strongly differentiated moment on the terrain. Here, two great structure collets, and there is both vertical and horizontal moment. What is the main reason is that the Caucasus range and the Georgian belt are collid, and for example, this the scientific research showed that study have shown that the central part of this territory. Thank you. The central part of this territory is vertically growing. 50 millimeter per year, and the Shotake de la Ridge, it is vertically growing 7-8 millimeter per year, and also this is Racha-Lechumi syncline, and the wings of this Racha-Lechumi syncline and this southern slope of the Lechumi Ridge is vertically growing 4 millimeter per year. Also, in addition, in addition to vertical uplift, Racha region is experiencing horizontal displacement 2.8 millimeter per year, and also there are different moment. This is Racha Hollow, Upper Racha Hollow, and this is Lower Racha Hollow are experiencing decrease 4 and 2 millimeter per year. And this was the main reason. In 1991, there was a huge earthquake. After that earthquake, 46,000 house and damaged, and 2,700 died. And because to evaluate this territory by morphological, geological, historical, and tourism potential, I divided this territory divided by me into 3 parts. This is lower Racha relief type and distribution area. The second is types of relief and distribution area of the Upper Racha and Jujura and Garula basin. And the first zone has 7 subzones. They are characterized by bare terrain. The hypsometric levels range from 300 meter to 3,562 meter. The geomorphological structure of the terrain creates a diverse landscape. The middle and lowland of the zone are populated, and natural landscape begins range from 300 till 1,000 meter. Although the complex morphological morphological process are intensified due to anthropogenic influence, and forms the geomorphological the main morphological process are landslide and other erosion process, and which is and also in high mountain they are presented the ancient glaciation forms, and the second is the Racha territory, the upper Racha territory, and 17% of the territory located more than 2,000 to 3,000 meters, and settlement are decreasing even more because they are the strict situation. Landscape are constantly changing due to extraction and mineral resources and the construction of hydropower plants, and they are the following morphological the morphological forms: landslide, rocks, avalanche, and snow avalanche occurred here constantly. And the last is Jejura and Karuli Basin. In the middle and highland relief presented in the third zone, this territory are strongly divided by Jejura and Karula River. The eastern part more higher than western part, and this territory, this landscape are pristine because the population are decreased, and the eastern part, about 20%, unfortunately, is occupied by Russia Federation. And Racha limestone massive. Racha limestone area is more than 590 square kilometer, and the highest point of the massive is 1,700 to 2,200 meter and above sea level, and the theoretical depth its territory has more 1,000 to 1,200 meter, and the massive of Racha limestone is a huge and longest karst massive completely in Georgia territory, and today they are about 45 caves and gaps. More of them are well studied by our Institute of Geographic Speleologists, and here is presented Skrajuari, the most beautiful karst cave. Also, this is Nikortsminda Sakinule freezer. Sakinule, it is translated into English as a freezer, and also Swava Sakinule is the same freezer. And I want to say that the freezer, Sakinule freezer, is the most Karstian territory, and the Murada cave. We are also consider these caves as a Geoparks territory. And mineral water resources and the Racha resources. By law, in Georgia, completely in Georgia, resources, research. By this law in Racha territory, we have 11 research places. By this table maps, we more than research are climate paneological territory, and it has multi medical workload. Hold this research. We in Racha territory we have 44 mineral water, more than our hydrocarbonate and chloride, and carbonate chloride has also its microspecific component. It is boron and ferrum. This picture shows the most wonderful landscape with its mineral water: Sortuani, Rebi, Noterula, and Utsera. While the Soviet Union, Utera and Utera territory was a factor, and they bottled mineral water. Today, this factory is private, and this is not function.
Can you somehow show the picture because we need to.
Okay. And this is Showy Resort, the first building in Showy Resort, what was built in 95, and it is also considered as a Geoparks territory. And historical and architectural monument. By historical and architectural monument, Racha is rich. Almost in every villages we have the religion building, architectural complex, castle, city. This figure, for example, what was made by RGS, this figure indicates, for example, this monument style, and the color indicates, for example, century. All of this picture belongs to Georgian cathedral, but only one is synagogue, what was built in 1985. I consider this territory also for Geopark territory because Georgian and Jewish has more than 26 century friendship, and but in Racha they settled, Jewish people settled in 17th century, and they created here huge trade connection, what has great income in Racha territory. On November 7, 2006, by the decree of president, this synagogue was awarded as the category of immovable monument. And it is a good way that in Geopark, traditional cuisine, culture, and food are important approach. Eating, it's not just not eating. I am eating that is, I'm become participant to other people, culture, traditions, and I get an idea about people's past and also in future. Because in Racha, the Racha territory is mountain territory, this food tradition culture has many specific mountain-specific elements, and more than 200 the food are saved in Racha territory. And viticulture and winemaking in Racha territory is a leading branch of this agricultural. In agriculture, and I want to say that in Racha territory are more than 60 species of grapes, but more than are forgotten and unknown because this territory is experiencing aging. And Huanchkara microzone is the main viticulture microzone, what is spread in Lower Racha, and it is protected by high mountains and located in the, by geological point of view, it is located in the syncline of Racha-Lechumi syncline, 450 meter, 750 meter above sea level. And Huanchkara, it is famous wine, hold this word, and it is what it was awarded in wine festival in Austin, Belgium in 1907, and it was the first bottled wine in Georgia, what was made by Nobel Dimitri Kipiani, and this wine was made at first this 7 species of grapes. And we have also Muhura village, where we consider this territory. Okay, in short time. Okay. And they are Muhuri village. It located in different part of the Georgia, and it they are also located Migaria limestone massive. Its length is 17 kilometers and have more than 60 caves. They are most beautiful is Shurubuma, and also it includes the local rare flora and fauna and several Tobavarchkali glacier origins lake. And we have also 3 geo trail. This first is located in Kakheti region, and it includes the land of the hidden water trail. The next is natural hazard interpretation trail. Its length is 6 kilometers, and it's designed for school children. And the volcanoes and lakes of South Georgia, what is only for expert hikers only. Thank you very much.
Ak dovolíte, aby som vstúpil do...
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to hand over a bottle of nice red wine from the small Carpathian Mountains, where Racha Great Love, a movie, has been shot, and I would like to ask for a cooperation between the Racha Geopark and the small Carpathian Geopark at our place.
Dobře, tak
Thank you very much for this nice and intensive presentation. The conference makes us convene with a representative from different countries. Now, the Georgian team can be presented. Mrs. Shishinadze is member of this team. Could maybe the other members from the Georgian team from this region come to us and just mention their name so that we can afterwards start our coffee break? Could we, those from the Georgian group, as it has been just mentioned, could you please come forward to the floor to just introduce yourself?
We have limited time, so I'm happy to hear. Thank you for the invitation and organizing this nice event. I am presenting the Georgian Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture, and I'm head of Biodiversity and Forestry Department, so at the same time responsible for protected areas development and the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, Emerald Sites, Natura 2000, and the Geopark is future for Georgia. I think for Caucasus region, something new which is which we should pay more and more attention to create such a product for ecotourism, for regional development, but mainly for the biodiversity conservation. So the Georgian team is presented by, is a mixed team from science part, geologists from the National Environment Agency, National Protected Area Agency, the National Ecotourism Association, and the Caucasus NGO Network Environment Organization. And again, we are happy to participate and bring our knowledge, but also take the experiences from other countries. Thank you.
tak já děkuji a dáme si 45.
Thank you very much. And let's now have our 45 minutes break. There's coffee behind you, water as well, and some small refreshments.